A little Tales from the Couch, basketball style for you. First few nights in the league, just want to go through some thoughts, including OKC's win at Denver. We've got Alex Smith on quarterbacks finding a way to make it later in their career, much like him. He was awesome, so I can't wait to talk to him. And we're going to catch up with old friend Dierks Bentley. Met him 30 years ago. He's famous, and he has a new whiskey out, and we'll talk about his origin story. And we've got life advice with just Kyle. And the Alliance marches on. It's our first edition of Tales from the Couch. The Rams won against the Vikings. Okay, let's talk NBA. I'm going to run through a bunch of different things here. I'm going to try to go faster on some stuff towards the end. But with the games last night, we had stuff worth watching, right? So we've got OKC at Denver. This game turned in the third quarter, although there was a run that we'll get to kind of in the first quarter as well. Chet was terrific last night, 25, 14, and 5, 4 blocks. It's his third season, but not his third season. It's his second season. We talked about the third score for OKC because I still think that that's something to like make them absurd. You know, when you start thinking about like there's the regular season viewing and then projecting what it'll all look like in the playoffs. And sometimes it'll be the same. Sometimes it's different, right? Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's easy. But you know, there's a reason why Chet was considered the prospect that he was and potentially even going number one, where, you know, I think taking him one wouldn't have necessarily been a mistake, even though Paolo was terrific for the Magic, right? But he was only taking 11 and a half shots per game last year. Last night he took 18. I know he missed a bunch of threes, but he's 37% from three, so I'm not worried about that. But there is a scenario here where I think the really good players and certainly the special players, so I'm not like saying that yet about Chet, but like the really good ones, you'll see a significant jump from year one to year two. And even more likely perhaps because he got to, you know, after the injury be around a team. So it wasn't like he was the truest rookie, even though last year was the first year he was playing. So that's something to look for. And it looked really good last night. Denver. Oh, another thing with Chet, he only played 29 minutes a game last year. Denver, this is going to be about the bench guys. I don't know. I don't like what I saw last night. And again, this is all with just one game in. But, I mean, there's some pretty, like, tough projections here based on, like, what you're seeing with the bench options here for Denver. So, Jokic comes out in the first quarter, and they were up 18-10, not right when he came out. So this isn't, I don't want to make it out to be like this guy comes out and then this group comes in. But they try to line up with Jamal Murray staying in, with Russell Westbrook, with Saric, and then Watson and Strother. OKC closed the quarter 21-6. Again, Jokic was in there for some of that, so it wasn't like 18-10 comes right out, and then that's the problem. But yeah, that's not great. They tried it again later on with Murray, Russ, Strother, and then Jokic was in there, Watson, and then Saric comes in to close the last couple of minutes of the third quarter. When Jokic comes out, his standard pattern, depending on like how Denver's feeling about the night, is when they'll bring Jokic in the fourth quarter. But there's just no spacing on this. They were 7-38 on threes. They're not going to be that bad every night, right? But if you look at the numbers here, Watson's 30% for his career. Strother's 29%. Westbrook's been below 30% 8 of his last 10 seasons. There's one season that's a shorter sample of like 21 games with the Clippers, but again, that was not the full season where he was like at 35%. I've heard people kind of argue like, oh, Westbrook's actually, you know, from corner threes. Like there may be some corner three numbers there, but the problem is like, look at how the defense lines up. Like there were lineups that Denver was throwing out there where it was 3 people that nobody was ever worried about closing out on. So when Jokic isn't in there, it's already an issue, even during these championship run years. But when he's not in there and you're trying to keep Murray in as the other great offensive option to work with all the other guys, there's just not anybody out there that anybody respects unless a Strother or a Watson. You know, it's still very early in their careers to develop into something. But like whatever you say about KCP, which I would admit, like on the lower end of stuff, like he can be on first team, is he in the game and not really notice him? But at least you had to respect it. And so now to replace that with some of these combinations where there's just not that much spacing. Like, look, Westbrook will be great on some kind of cut where Jokic is going to find him and feed him. It'll be terrific. So this isn't all on just like Westbrook being pretty bad last night. It's just the concept. Like, let's map it out over 6 months. Now, maybe the point for Denver is, just keep going, probably still win 50 games because of Jokic, and, shorten rotations and hope you have something. But in today's game, like, I almost feel like I'm going to start writing teams off. Like, where is the shooting? And that's a lot of non-shooters in today's game to all have on the floor at the same time. Oklahoma City's won 4 straight against Denver. I thought Murray looked much better physically than what we saw this summer. He didn't shoot it well. In those 4 straight, Murray played all 4. Jokic missed 1. So sometimes you can look at the season series stuff and everything and be like, oh, this guy missed it. I didn't feel like going through every single box score this morning. Bench guys for OKC. Let's hear for Ousmane Dieng, immediately paying dividends. Corner 3. Caruso, Wallace, Wiggins, 15 points. He's like the uncool OKC depth, but he's also like just pretty good. And no J. Will 2 from them. Dallas, San Antonio, spacing a theme here. We'll get to it. But to start, Clay looked great. It wasn't just the shooting. I thought he moved pretty well. Yes, he's never going to be the same guy he was defensively again. I think we're talking like 5 years ago now, so I think it's okay now. He was 6 of 10 on threes. You look back on it, the way he's been talked about, he missed 2 seasons back-to-back. And since those, the last 3 that he's played, he shot 39, 41, and 39% from 3. He's 34 years old. All right. The bench thing last year, he was only benched for 14 of the 77 games that he played in. You're right. It doesn't look the same defensively, but people that are throwing around like Clay being washed, you're just wrong. I never understood. I mean, look, the world is a nasty place on social media. I'm reminded of it from time to time, but I think the overwhelming like negativity towards who Clay is or isn't, like his life's going to be really easy. And I'd say last night I even saw him kind of getting into a shot with the ball a little bit more than we're used to seeing. All right, Wembanyama with Chris Paul on the other side. This was actually kind of disappointing last night. Again, 1 game, so who knows, whatever. He finished 5 of 18. I was charting it through the 3 quarters. Only 4 of his 14 shots were at the rim. Dallas did a really good job with Wembanyama last night. Wemby got him once at the rim with that absurd up and under where you're thinking he's too far. Oh, no, his arms are still going. And he made a bucket. That was really the only time. Like the only time he kind of got him. Lively played more than Gafford because of Gafford's foul trouble. Gafford still starts, but it's a really nice 1-2 punch that we saw pay dividends through the back half of the regular season into the playoffs for him. So that's not necessarily surprising. And I like Dallas's top 8 better this year than last year's. I just do. But back to the Wembanyama part of it, I think Dallas did a really good job, and I also think San Antonio does a bad job with him, at least for a game. I don't like where he starts. He was even bringing the ball up a few times in the first half, and then sometimes they get the ball back to him. He's in the triple threat at the three-point line. I understand at his size and his combination of skills, this unicorn that we've never seen before, like the fun part is that he can catch it from the three-point line and drive and do all these things. But, sometimes it comes back to an issue with spacing. Like, Champagne's a pretty good shooter from 3, 37% from the line last year. Chris Paul was 37%, but he's just not going to shoot enough. And then Barnes is actually 38% from his career from 3. So in theory, you're looking around, and they didn't have Vassell last night. So, like, all right, maybe there will be enough shooting, but watching the way Dallas defended, they just stayed big. They cut off like off-ball paths for Wembanyama. If he was trying to get better position, they would just be tough with him. And I also just don't think San Antonio did enough stuff where there was one ball screen where Wembanyama rolled against the switch, and then he got the pass, and I think he may have gotten free throws out of it. And you're like, all right, a little bit more of that. I imagine Chris Paul are going to figure some of this stuff out. And maybe Chris Paul is going to have to take more threes. But even with some of the three-point shooting numbers, I don't know that Dallas was necessarily like afraid of it. And it just allows guys to trickle off. And look, with Vassell in, that'll add another element to it. Castle was fun as far as his energy. It was a little, look, his first NBA game. He's a young kid. So, yeah, there was a little reckless at times there as well. And Keldon Johnson, I remember liking him. I do. And I know I've said that last year. He looks like he's in better shape. But I think San Antonio, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, they need to do a better job with Wembanyama. Like I just thought at least last night with Dallas and the way they defend him, just being smart about it, staying big, just trying to like throw big bodies, stay in front, try not to go for all the stuff that's really exciting with Wembanyama. But I also don't love like where he was initiating his offense from through much of the night. He missed a million threes. I don't know if he was settling or whatever, but I don't know that it was like great contest either. I just think he was missing shots. The best game was Minnesota at Sacramento. It's 81-71 Sacramento late third. Minnesota goes small with Ant DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, Randall, who had 33 last night, was much better than the Lakers game, and then Naw. This is not a look at that. They took Gobert out and went small, and they came back in the third quarter because they did come back in the third quarter, but it's not that. Trust me, I'd be willing to do that if that were the case, but it wasn't, because when they brought Gobert back in, it was still they were still down. It was 87-78, and then DiVincenzo, Naz, Ant all hit threes, and that put the run together. The Gobert factor part of this, like if you don't like Gobert, it's worth looking at some of that fourth quarter. I know nobody's going to do this, but I've talked about Gobert plenty of times, the good and the bad, and him not being an asset offensively is just a really frustrating thing. And you can see same thing happening in Utah, happening in Minnesota. You just don't always want to throw the ball down. He's just not strong with the basketball. And if the other team goes small, he doesn't make you pay for it with his offense. Okay. All right. But on the defensive side, not that this is breaking news, this is one another defensive player of the year. Look at when he's out, how excited the drivers get on the opposing team. Okay. It is a completely different attitude from the opponent. It's like, oh, he's gone. This is great, because Rudy is so good at switching onto the small guy and then still retreating and then changing the shot. Right? It's just something to remind yourself of if somebody who is in your friend group. And I'm not the biggest fan, right? Because it's the contract, the trade, and some of that other stuff. But just watch when he comes out what the ball handlers do and how happy they are. And by the way, DeMar DeRozan, when Gobert was in, had one of the best drives on Gobert you're going to see, because he was anticipating Rudy kind of playing two. So ball handler showing on DeRozan, but then also retreating and keeping the rolling big within arm's distance. I think Sabonis was cutting down the left lane. And DeRozan drove it and just gave him the slightest move to make him think he might be giving up the ball, which kind of throws Rudy in this absurd thing we ask of these centers to play two guys at once. And yet he still got the shot off on Rudy on the right side. And Rudy still kind of like came back and contested a little bit. It was the most like delicate thing that DeRozan, it wasn't some massive move, jab step, up fake, all this stuff. He just got Rudy thinking like, you got to stay honest to the right side of the lane here. And he got the shot off against him, which doesn't happen a lot. DeRozan was really good, hit a million free throws. Keegan was terrific. Sabonis was really good. He hit 3 of 4 threes. He's taken 1 3 a game for his entire career. If Sabonis, because you can see him pass on that open foul line shot because these other teams scout it. And I mean, this has been going on since like, I don't even know. I think it was really ugly in that Warriors series where Draymond just was like, I'm not even leaving the restricted area when you catch it at the free throw line. You would just think with Sabonis' touch and all of this stuff, like he just needs to take it, needs people to respect that, and they don't. And yet then he pulled it out and started hitting huge threes. Not a great Fox game, whatever, but the Ant fuck it mode is the best thing in the NBA. It can't be matched. He just kind of went off there at the end and ended up getting the free throws to win this one after getting fouled. And he did get fouled by Sabonis with like 0.4 left on the shot clock, 2 seconds left in the game. A couple of things, though, bigger picture here with Minnesota, because I was talking about like the Randall part of it of does Finch start Randall because it's Randall and Naz has already come off the bench to appease everybody, keep everybody happy. But Randall's still going to, whatever you think of him, certainly there's nights I don't love him, he's going to be talented enough to get you buckets. He's also been a really good passer going all the way back to Kentucky, so you think he might be able to fit in a little bit better. But I do like that Minnesota feels like they have a couple different options here, whether it's if they want to take Conley out in the closing moments and put in DiVincenzo, if they want to go Naz instead of Randall. But then last night, they actually closed the last few minutes because I thought, oh, DiVincenzo's still in there. Then they brought in Conley, but then they took McDaniels out. So again, something to look at there. DiVincenzo, Conley, and McDaniels all played 27 minutes last night. All right. Rapid fire. Ben Simmons looked better in that Atlanta game on Wednesday. He just looked better. Also had some bad plays. Monitoring benched the last, I think, 6 minutes of that one, and it was a close game. I love the Pacers closing with Benedict Mathurin. I'm a Mathurin fan. I just think he gets to the rim constantly. He's another offensive threat you have to worry about. I'd rather close with all these offensive threats, but Nesmith is going to be in there for his defense and the shooting in theory. Nesmith might be the only guy I think in the league plays too hyped. Nesmith, foul trouble. I think he could foul out of every single game if you wanted to call the fouls on him. They'd probably just go, we can't call all of these. But I don't know if that's something that Carlisle's going to do with the Pacers. I would be in favor of it because I just think Mathurin gives you so much more offensively, but I'm sure that there's a defensive drop-off. But, that might be one of those taxes that you would pay on giving up some of that defense to have another guy that as soon as you swing it opposite to him and then he gets some momentum and starts driving, he's making a bucket or he's getting free throws. He really is that good at it. The Magic might be really good. 1 seed good? No. I can't fathom anybody beating Boston after what we've seen from Tatum shooting to start the year, and that's not exactly brand new news. LaMelo was the best player on the floor in Charlotte's win at Houston. He was fantastic. I think there's probably some lineup confusion that'll happen here with the Rockets as Udoka tries to figure out what he wants. I thought it was funny to see Amen Thompson kind of come in and go, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to kind of sit around anymore. I'm going to give you a little prime Jalen Green and start going for it. I thought he was really aggressive. There's also some Şengün sub patterns that are worth paying attention to because he's probably the most skilled player on the Rockets, and they just did his contract. And by the way, credit to the Rockets for doing the Jalen Green contract the way that they did it. Okay, we're going to give you the huge bump, but we're not doing the full thing. We're not sure yet. And you have an option where you can reset the whole thing and make even more. So it's kind of a win-win, even if the standard is, if I'm this high of a pick and I'm the leading scorer, then I'm supposed to just get the 5-year, $200 million. What are we doing? But I thought credit to the Rockets for doing something a little different that I think a lot of other teams would have just maxed out Jalen Green, even if they didn't know if they had the answer on if he's actually going to be the guy. Jabari Smith's handle looked a little bit better. Stat line did not. 2 of 7, 8 points, 5 rebounds, 33 minutes. Definitely getting frustrated with my position in the Jabari portfolio. Ja from Memphis looks like Ja Morant. I guess he should, right? He's still young enough. He's this ridiculous athlete. But game one, hey, look at that. Looks just like Ja Morant. Because it is. If you don't like Zach Edey, I don't know that you can take the victory lap at him fouling out in 16 minutes. You go back and watch those fouls. It's not him getting caught in a switch against a smaller player and getting exposed defensively the way that I think if you were on the floor closing, that's something that you're going to see. And he's going to have to figure out a way to survive it. But the fouls were just kind of reaching in, frustrated a couple times. They were, I think for the most part, pretty legitimate, but it wasn't because he was switched onto a smaller ball handler and being exposed. Suns win in overtime. Harden was hardened again, and then he was hardened again. 10 of 28, but the final stat line, 29, 12, and 8. Could Harden lead the league in scoring? It's gonna be a little slower, but it's gonna look a lot like the Houston Harden years if opening night was any indicator. Clippers also play really hard, and shout out Kai Jones at center. You want to talk Nesmith energy. Phoenix, love already the rotation and what it looks like. O'Neal, Allen, Plumlee, Morris. They've got 2 rookies playing in Dunn and Iguodala, who can do a little bit more with the ball if you didn't watch him at Marquette. And then final 2 thoughts here. Scoot Henderson off the bench. Can't phase him. 18 shot attempts. Got to the free throw line a lot. I'll tell you what, he looks bigger. He looks taller. He's getting so big. He looked a little quicker to me. But, took a lot of free throws. Final thought. Just a thought moving forward. I'd like to present a new rule. If you're doing a jersey swap, should you reach a minimum points threshold the night of said swap? Yeah, I'm in favor of it. The jersey swap should be limited to, I mean, is 8 points too nice? How about 10? How about 10 points for a jersey swap? And if you score 9, it's like, hey, man, you're just going to have to get 10 the next time. This is the first time I've ever talked to Alex Smith. I'm pretty sure that's true. Through the ESPN years, you can lose track. But he joins us now, and he's now working with ESPN. He's doing some awesome interviews. We're going to talk to him about that. Also has a new podcast out, The Glue Guys, with Shane Battier and Ravi Gupta. So what's up, man? It's good to see you.
How's it going? I feel like I've talked to you before because I've listened to the pod. So like you do make this connection as a podcast listener. So I do feel like I know you. So yeah, it's cool to talk to you.
It sucks that Cerruti's traveling today because Cerruti is one of your biggest fans ever. And I'll just come clean. I think there was a time where it was like a graphic where it was like, here's the all-time winning, and it was like Brady, Manning, and then Alex Smith. And I would like, whether it was a pre-show meeting or on the air. So if you listen to me, like I just always have to be honest. I'd be like, come on, you guys. Like, we can't do that with Alex Smith. And then Cerruti would just jump in and be like, he's way better than you think he is. And I'd be like, yeah, but what about? So yeah, just in full transparency here, I hate that he's not here because he's been one of your staunchest defenders of anyone I've ever met.
Oh, well, next time we'll have to do it again.
What's this been like? I know it's been a few years now. Usually those first two are tough for somebody who's had a life in football. But what's it been like as you've kind of really fully transitioned and understood like the next chapter of your life?
Yeah, I mean, transitions are hard. They're hard, and the walk away from professional sports is such a unique thing. I'll never forget like entering the league, and all you hear is NFL, not for long, right? Like the average career spans 2 years, and I was playing as a young top pick, and it was a lot. Those were like dog years, Ryan. I remember thinking that like, man, if I could ever make it 10 years. And that seemed like that was 1,000 years away, right? Like that was so far away. I didn't think I would ever make it. And then to end up playing 16 years, obviously just so incredibly lucky and grateful for that to happen. But then you walk away, and there were, I had all these interests and things that I'd always wanted to go do that I got to put off. I got to like kick the can on just because football kept going and going and going, and then here's my opportunity. And at the same time, all of a sudden I'm, middle-aged and have kids, and football at that point was always kind of a means to an end, right? Like you're sacrificing so much. I put so much into football all those years, and it was always knowing, right? Like this is going to last forever. So my wife knew it. Everybody knew it. And then you unplug from football for a while and decompress. But you quickly realize like, I can't just play golf every day. Like I can't do nothing. What the hell am I going to do with the rest of my life? So just trying to find that balance. And I still feel like I'm on that mission. I still trying to work it out. I don't have the answers at all. I am enjoying my time at ESPN. I never thought I would do TV ever. I don't know if you knew this when I played. I was like the most boring interview of all time. I was like the epitome of getting on the podium and the microphone and just verbal vomit. Like I didn't say anything of meaning. And that was kind of because you're coached, right? Like you're coached to do that. Just don't give them any ammunition. Say less. Is just like walking cliches. And I kind of never thought I'd have something to say on TV. And it's so funny there. I really do enjoy the challenge. Doing the Sunday countdowns now, getting ready for that, like gearing up. There's so many people that have crazy stuff to say during the week that like just amps me up and fuels me for Sunday. So it's been fun.
Okay. So you touched on something like I usually, the Brady timeline for me is kind of funny. We're close to the same age. He came into the league. I was a huge Patriots fan back in the day. I moved to Boston right when it all started, from Massachusetts. And I remember thinking, like, Belichick has the perfect muse in Brady because Brady was just buying into all of it immediately. And, like, Belichick didn't want free thinkers, right?
Yeah, no.
But the part that I've admired with Belichick, even if I didn't love all the interviews, is that he just basically was like, I'm not gonna do anything that you want me to do because it's all pointless. So why give you anything. But then there's always probably like a moment of you getting a little bit older and you're thinking, there's actually is a personality in here. Like if I were a player, and you're saying
Totally.
and we're seeing it with Brady, but it took like 20 years and now we're seeing it with you. I still think it's the right approach because outside of the locker room, knowing what it's like being in the media, we lose our minds over the dumbest shit that doesn't mean anything. But I do wonder if you ever replay it being like, maybe I didn't have to be like that.
Yes. No, absolutely. So two things, a lot there. Like even think about Belichick and Saban now, right? Like, these guys were like the most stoic head coaches. Don't say anything, right? They were like cut from the same cloth. This is this old school. There even was like the media was, it was the enemy, right? Like even when they, and now they're, they're all over the place in media and you're seeing their personality come out. And it's actually been this like very fun experience and no different with Tom. You and I talked right before the taping, like about the interviews. And this is where it hits me the most, Ryan. Like when I go sit down with these quarterbacks and I get asked to do this from ESPN and I get it because it was the same thing. Like when I was playing, like they would send a quarterback because I think they think you'll say yes to the sit down, and it works. And there's nothing worse than I'll go interview somebody who kind of was me when I was playing and you leave it and you're like, man, that sucked. Like it's just like, that was a crappy interview. I didn't get anything. It was like pulling teeth. And then I'll go sit down with a guy like Baker and I'm like, this is awesome. Like this guy is so refreshing, like he just kind of is who he is. It's so honest and authentic. And I really love that. And I do reflect back on when I was playing, and certainly the back half of my career, when I probably could have walked the line better on being myself and not providing fodder for anything, like not becoming a distraction to anything. And yeah, so like, live and learn. But I do that thought definitely comes across for me as I reflect back on my career.
I think the problem with sharing more is that if you're not playing well, then the reason you're not playing well, part of it becomes your personality. And Baker's a perfect example of that. Like whether or not you liked him coming out of the draft, you could use his personality as an asset, and you could use it against him. I mean, really, he was probably hurt way more than we realized when he was at Cleveland. Yes. There were certain plays where I'd see him running around being like, dude, he doesn't even look right. But it wasn't working, right? And it wasn't working. He goes to a place like the Rams. It's not like he's going to take over for Stafford anyway. But it is funny, and I think this gets back to like a flaw that we have in the media, but I also think it happens with fans, is that now that it's working for Baker, his personality is thought to be this incredible asset. Like it's a great part of his makeup because he's so relatable and all the guys rally around him. He's just a guy's guy. Like I'm hearing he's no different, but the way it's talked about plays out entirely different just based on wins or losses on Sunday.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I think, and I battled this when I was really young. And I guess this is the thing I do appreciate about, even Baker specifically. He's not trying to get everybody to like him. And I know for a fact, like if you go back into those Browns locker rooms and the Carolina locker rooms, like his teammates felt no different about him, right? Like that certainly is at the core of a huge motivation. In fact, probably is like the greatest respect. Like you want your teammates and even opponents to respect you, right? Like that's like the greatest compliment, and certainly the outside world is not a part of that. But when you're young and you're a high pick, you want everybody to like you. You want to justify the pick and that you were good enough. And so you're starved for that. And you crave that, which is actually like this horrible motivator. But for sure, all everybody sees are the results, right? Like all everybody sees is the output. So when they see the wins, and they see Baker's, personality, they correlate it, and no different when it's not going well. And the truth is, obviously, one has nothing to do with the other. You know what I'm saying? Like this is who he is. And, personality is, this is part of, like, especially as a quarterback in your leadership role within a team. We all do it a different way.
Okay. So there's a few different things that I could go to off of that, and I'm going to get to all of them, but I want to start on something that I was thinking about when I was thinking about your career, because if you go through, granted the team wasn't doing well, right? I don't think it was until the sixth season you played, you had missed one with the injury where from a one-loss standpoint, honestly, Alex, like I wonder if in today's age, if you would have been the starter year 4.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
No, I like watching the Bryce Young thing. And I think the leash for quarterbacks has just gotten even shorter and shorter, which is crazy. And like watching Sam Darnold is this like perfect example of this. Never given a chance to reach his potential. Right? Like this guy's gifted and it's in there, right? And he's drafted as a 20-year-old kid to a dysfunctional organization. It's a disaster. And everybody, there's this belief out there that it's like just this binary thing. Like you either have it or you don't, right? That's it. You know, you come in as this young kid, you're a top pick, so you inherently go to a bad football team. You play right away, right? You don't have great stability around you. There's even this process, obviously, for you as a young kid to adapt to a pro game and learn and be able to make mistakes and grow. And that mindset isn't present at almost all teams and organizations. Now, the really good ones, it is. And that's why they're good, because they can develop guys. They can they have a growth kind of mindset. But the vast majority of places, like as soon as you make a mistake and it starts to compound a little bit, you don't have a lot of room for error. And it's like, well, he can't do it. We missed, bust. Like, and that's just everybody rushes to judgment, you know, and especially as a quarterback position where you're so dependent upon everybody around you, right? Not just the other 10 guys in the huddle and your defense, but again, the guy calling plays, the guy building the scheme. Like, there's just so many compounding factors that I think are hard to measure, but all we see is the guy with the ball in his hands out there, right? And when you're the quarterback, there's nowhere to hide, right? You could be a guard. You could be a top pick guard and kind of hide sometimes. Like you're QB, man. Like everybody sees the stat line. They watch it. Like it's out there. And then to think about Sam, like his first two teams, then he goes to Carolina Panthers, which may be more dysfunctional than the Jets. I mean, this is a team that like had Sam and Baker walk through that doors. They've mowed through five or six coaches in the last couple of years. They couldn't identify a QB, you know, if their life depended on it. Look at they've just destroyed Bryce Young. Like it's been a disaster. And so we all rush to judgment. And then, Sam Darnold goes to a year with Kyle Shanahan and kind of rehabs a little bit. Now he goes to Kevin O'Connell and, oh my God, we turn on the tape. And like, if you're a Jets fan or Carolina fan, you're like, what the hell, man? Like, you know, but that's just the way that the NFL is right now, unfortunately, for the vast majority of teams. And the really good ones, again, do it a different way.
So I've talked, like Matt Leinert's a buddy, you know, we live near each other, see him all the time. And we were talking about it once. I was like, you know, what do you think happened with you? And he was like, I was in the wrong system for the way I played. Immediately it was like complete, like it wasn't even the right fit. And I think people would be listening to this, like, okay, well, maybe he wasn't good enough or whatever. And he's very honest about things. He goes, look, I'll just tell you, Ryan, like by year 5, that's when I finally felt comfortable. Right. But at that point, like, as he knew, as most people know, it was over. It's too late. Like, it's not going to happen. But you mentioned Baker and it clicking for a couple different reasons. Darnold was a draft pick, where as much as I just kind of shrug when it comes to the QBs based on the history, I was like, there's no way he's going to be bad. And now you're like, was I right? And you have Goff, who, you know, the Rams, granted, they felt like they were upgrading to Stafford. They win a Super Bowl, but they still traded somebody they made a Super Bowl with, which, you know, is fairly rare. So I don't know if this is a new way of doing things, because it is kind of rare for guys that jump as like top overall picks to go somewhere else and then have playoff success and actually win playoff games. It hadn't happened for a really long time. And now we have this group where it's happening. We'll see what happens here with Darnold. And then when I think about like when it clicked for you, you can't tell NFL teams, hey, you've got to give it 5 or 6 years if you're taking somebody this high. But like, what was it specifically for you when you realized, okay, this is what I need to do? I mean, I know there's probably a really long answer in there, but I think we're seeing it all over again.
I think a couple things happened. I mean, one, I had 7 offensive coordinators in 7 years. And you just never...
Is that bad?
Yeah. You're just never going to get to an advanced level of play like pressing reset every year, right? Like it's like you're only in, you know, football 101. You never get to like the advanced graduate school level football, because it's just like you're pressing reset and learning a new system and like a new philosophy in a new way. And a couple of things, like I do think I needed to kind of learn and definitely kind of hit rock bottom a little bit, as far as like trying to get everybody to love me and like justify the pick. And I was consumed with that for a long time, and like finally letting go of that. And, you know, and focusing on what matters. And again, dude, I do think mindset is such a funny thing, especially as a quarterback, and confidence. And it did coincide with Jim Harbaugh. Like flat out. Like Jim coming in, this is a guy that played quarterback for 15 years. He played for the Chargers where I grew up. I watched him play. And he was such a great example for me, of just like letting go of all that.
What does he
And
say to you? Like, what does he say to you that we don't hear? That
yeah, and
gets
it's
it
not
to
just
click?
the words. No, it's not just, it is that though, because he talks about it. And I've talked about this before. Like his last words before the entire team took the field were "Don't worry." Right. And like all I did was worry. I'd spent 7 years of worrying, 6 years of worrying, right? Worrying about what they're going to think about me. What are they going to say about me? What are they going to write about me in the paper? What did they boo me? Like all this crap that like, and again, here I am getting ready to play a football game when you should be like dialed in, man, to the little things, right? Especially as a quarterback. And again, I'm consumed with all this crap that doesn't matter and bad self-talk and doubt. And Jim, again, uh, the expectation too, like I had played for some defensive coaches where I felt like they thought just quarterbacks had this magic dust that just made everybody better, right? Like that you just go out there and just it's on you. You got to do it, you know. And I felt like I had to be more than myself, right? Like I had to be more. I couldn't just do the little things. I had to do this extra stuff. And like, well, look, and like it was always pointed out. Well, like, look, Peyton, like, look what he's done. You know, he just gets the ball out so fast, and like all these things. And I had never, I had never seen up close too. This is part of this. Like, I had never seen a quarterback play at a high level up close. Like, I never got a mentor. That never happened. And Jim finally, like, I think probably there was that, and it was like, dude, you don't have to do anything. Like, you just run the offense, man. Like, that was it. Like, and it was, I remember thinking, like, huh, like, I just have to throw the stick route. Like, that's all you want me to do? And he's like, yeah, like, that's the offense, man. Like, you don't have to do anything extra. And I remember this, like, big weight I felt like was shed off of me because that was the expectation all of a sudden now. Just like, go run the offense. You know, it's the guard's job to block. It's the tight end. You know, like, the offense works for you and you just go run the offense. And kind of finally they're like playing well and building confidence, right? And again, this confidence and mindset is such a big part of that. And that was the big difference maker for me.
When you're doing the sit down interviews, you know, I know you had the one with Harbaugh, and I went back and watched the Aaron Rodgers one this morning. And, you know, there's just, especially with you and Rodgers, the history coming in the same draft class. And then, you know, he waits his turn and then he turns into one of the great quarterbacks ever. I mean, he was so much better with you than most people I would see him in that kind of forum with. Do you notice that when you're interviewing? I mean, you and Harbaugh have the relationship as you just referenced here. So you
Yeah.
walk in the room with it. You may not have studied it the way others have, but you walk in with an advantage very few of us have in those settings.
Yeah. And it's, you know, I still feel like I'm learning. In fact, would love some advice, but like, it's a delicate dance because like the Aaron one, right? Like I've known Aaron for 20 years. You know, we're both 40 now. We were 20. Like my first college start was against Aaron and Cal. Like we go back a long time and have
Were you
remained
friends?
Yes, and have remained friends over the years. Like very much a very honest, real relationship. We're not like crazy close, but like when we see each other, there's a real connect and real conversations kind of about our journeys. And we've, you know, and um and very much a respect there. But I do realize like now I'm coming in with cameras. Like I get it. I know why they sent me. And I appreciate certainly that, you know, obviously Aaron's a tough, you know, like he's not saying yes to everything at this point. And I understand why I got asked to come out and talk to him. And, you know, I think the fine line too of you're getting prepped from my producers and like, what do we want to get them to talk about and topics and questions and things like that. But certainly my ownership over that. Right. And how I get to certain things and the angle you come towards with, you know, with them, I guess, so to speak. And then I think, and the great thing in these, I guess I've realized in these interviews is you can prep all you want. The best interviewers are like great listeners, right? Like in the moment. And you can't you can't just be like worried about your next question. You got to listen, man, and follow up. And, you know, I do think there's, you know, they leave breadcrumbs out there, you know, for you oftentimes, and you got to listen for them to kind of, you know, dig a little deeper at certain things. And so, and again, I think to try to maintain that respect is also at the core, right? Like he and I are still friends, and I don't want to, I'm not going to cross a line. I value that. And so just trying to strike that balance.
Okay. This will be a tougher one. How different were the scenarios for you losing the job to Kaepernick versus losing the job to Mahomes?
Yeah. Well, for one, obviously one experience leads, helps you with another. The Cap thing,
You were having such a good time. You were
yeah,
like,
it's
oh,
tough. I'm
this
like
was
leading.
fun.
I was like leading the NFL and passer rating and or whatever. And I feel like finally, again, I'd gone through so much turbulent time, all the coordinators and the dysfunction and head coaches, and then all of a sudden, here we go. And I felt like it was worth it, man. I put in, I hunkered down through all that stuff, and now it's paying off. And here we go. And the team was so good. I mean, we were loaded. And I was loving playing for Harbaugh and Greg Roman and the entire team. Vic Fangio is our D coordinator and the core of that locker room that had been through all that crap, that like now coming out the other side. And, obviously then to get the concussion and watch Cap go in and roll. And people I think have a twisted view of those. Like Cap's first 8 games were historic. Like the
Off
run
the
he went
charts.
on there was ridiculous. Through the playoffs.
Green Bay looked like they had never seen anything like it.
They still don't know who has the football,
right.
And then all the way to the Super Bowl, and to go to the Super Bowl. Listen, I was a team captain. I still had the C on my chest, right? Like the only time I stepped on the field was for the coin toss. Like it's embarrassing, and to watch that pass me by, it's hard, it's frustrating. And at that point in my career, I still wasn't like totally solidified. At least I hadn't felt like it, and I think it was kind of for me, a pivotal point in my career after everything I'd gone through. As distracted as I'd been, I distracted myself for so long with the number 1 pick thing and the weight of it that in that moment, I remember like very much thinking like, I'm pretty confident at some point I'm going to get another opportunity. I don't know if it's going to be here as a Niner. I don't know where it's going to be or what it's going to look like, but like the only thing I do control is if I'm ready for it, and I'm not going to be distracted anymore. All the noise around the media, me not playing in the Super Bowl and getting my job back and Cap and, all this stuff. Like I'll never forget the media day at the Super Bowl and the frenzy that was. I just wasn't going to be distracted by that stuff anymore and just was going to put my head down and work for the next opportunity. And obviously grateful that it came in the form of an Andy Reid phone call, which,
what's that phone call like? What's that phone call?
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget the first thing he said to me. He asked me if I could run 22Z in. Like it's like that's like West Coast 101 for everybody out there. That's like day one install. And I'd been in, a couple different versions of West Coast at that point through all my coordinators, and just laughed at it. And I'd played Andy. It felt like I played the Eagles every year of my career, and it was like through the Eagles' good years. And it was a lot of painful memories. I mentioned hitting rock bottom as a player, and it was actually like at Candlestick against the Eagles when the entire stadium was like chanting the backup quarterback's name. And so, I'd always been a fan of his from afar and the offenses and everything they had done. And so he had just got the job in Kansas City, and I'd like jumped at it. Like, Coach, I'm ready, man. And again, everything I'd been through and certainly the stuff, obviously losing my job, it really does make you grateful for the opportunity, right? I had kind of been spoiled as a number 1 pick and just like the leash I had, right, to make mistakes and still be the starter. And again, like losing it was a learning experience, right? I was like, dude, then, how quickly this may end. And that was also part, I think, the cool thing from Jim. Jim like was so, I felt like he wanted to play one more game, and I thought I always found that like endearing when I played for him. It was like, man, this is going to end, right? And like, you better freaking, make the most of it and enjoy it while it's here.
Do you think Jim thinks he could convert a 3rd and 7 today?
I don't know what he would say, but yep. I just threw with him, man. That interview, we played catch. He could still spin it. He's one of a kind. And yeah, I think he could go. He could definitely go convert. Yeah, one more play.
I know. Next time. I don't need to help you prep your interviews. They're fantastic. What's your favorite Mahomes story of him maybe in his rookie year when you start the whole year, he plays what in that last game? Was there a moment where you were texting one of your buddies or somebody and you just went, this dude is ridiculous?
There were, gosh, I'm trying to think. Like it's funny. there was never one like aha moment, probably, that it just was this like kind of slow wave that just came on over the course of that season. And certainly by the end of the season, when he started, we had the last game of the year. We'd already clinched the playoffs and couldn't move. We couldn't get any higher. So, a bunch of the stars didn't play, and he started with really a limited. Again, none of the starters are playing. Right, he's out there playing an NFL game with a bunch of kind of backups, and just how easy and prepared he was for that. And I think over that entire year, to go back, like, Pat beat me in the building most mornings, right? And at this point, I was year 13. Like, I was so dialed in to my preparation and how seriously I took it, and I would like how structured it was. And man, and Patrick was just like was like glue too. The way that quarterback roomed everywhere I went, everywhere we went, you did it together. Tyler Bray was the third, and was just like, from eating together, training together, working out, practice, film, dinners at night with like the girlfriends and wives, like it just, so many things. And the stories are true, man. We'd go to a steakhouse and this guy would ask for ketchup, right? Like we go out to drink and it's Coors Lights. Like that stuff's all real, and was certainly, I gave him a lot of crap about it. But again, to go back to football, just the slow wave. And it's probably about halfway through the season where, he's running scout team and he's going against our defense, and our defense was good at that point. And stout. And like, I remember he started no looking slants, which is like one thing, it's a 3-step drop. And then all of a sudden he starts no looking like dig routes, like a 20-yard dig route. And he's like, dude, you're a rookie. Like if I were like flash back to my rookie year, like again, my head was spinning. Dude, it was such a disaster. And here's this kid who, starts like humming and the confidence. And I think the vision and understanding of the game to go do that. And again, he was so dialed in when he made that start week 17. I think the little things jumped out. His control of protections. I don't think Patrick gets enough. Like all everybody sees are the trick plays, which they're, jaw dropping. But like, he's so dialed in up front. Like to watch what he did against Baltimore last, in the AFC Championship game on the road, like just dissecting them. And again, every protection, you watch him up front. He's so good. Seeing what the defense is doing, analyzing it, protecting himself, getting the ball out, like just never caught off guard. And that stuff jumped out in that week 17 game, against Denver. So which when I lost the playoff game, what is it? The next week or 2 weeks later, it was very apparent that what was about to happen.
Did they tell you as the season was happening, like, hey, he's taking over?
No. It was apparent. We knew how good he was playing. The throws he was making. I'll never forget, like Eric Berry coming up to me like, "Damn, did you see the throw he made at practice today?" And like going and watching it.
Thanks, Eric.
So, and it was cool. We had a good environment then. Like it wasn't, it was such a healthy place. But I knew once I'd lost in the playoffs again, like that was kind of my MO there at that point. Like, hey, great playoff run. Great regular season runs, but coming up short in the playoffs. And so, obviously I knew they traded up for him and how ready he was at that point.
I'll tell you though, and I had heard this, it just, your role in it. And, I don't know. I don't know if Mahomes starts immediately somewhere else without you, without Andy Reid. I think he's so special that I might.
Yeah, agreed.
If you told me, like, I'd probably figures it out wherever he goes. He's that special. But, that relationship that you had with him, you deserve a lot of credit for it. Because when a guy is still, in the league and he's got some years left and the team spends a first-round draft pick on a quarterback, I don't know that I would blame the quarterback for, maybe thinking about, like, I need to do everything I can do to keep my job. And I know, like, I'm supposed to everybody get along and mentor and do all this kind of stuff. But, like, you have to be a certain kind of person to be willing to do that for the greater good of the franchise and for this other guy that it's not his fault that the team drafted you. Like, I'd heard stories about, back when Rodgers used to still like Van Pelt. He would tell us about, Van Pelt didn't do anything. It's just that Rodgers was very, like, he used to come on with us a couple times because he liked Scott. And I'd asked about sitting behind Favre, and Rodgers, like, this is the part that I do like about it. He just wasn't screwing around with it. Like, he basically let you know without saying it that Favre was awful. about it. Okay. Like just wasn't, which I also understood Favre's position. I think I remember, was it when Mason Rudolph was drafted and Roethlisberger had some quote? We were like, oh, okay, like they're not going to be roommates. It takes a really, like, maybe because everything you had been through, and it doesn't mean you're less of a competitor. I just think it takes a really special combination of a person to be able to help someone that may be replacing him. I don't even know if I could do it. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying I'd be a dick, but I don't know if I could do it. And you deserve a lot of credit for it.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think I agree with you. I think people give too much credit. I think certainly if there's somebody that could have played pretty early, it's obviously Patrick. I mean, maybe he's in the conversation for the greatest of all time. I think a couple things. Listen, my experience as a top pick certainly played a big role in this, right? Like, again, I mentioned it was turbulent, right? Like, there was no plan. I didn't get to watch anybody. And again, when you get drafted, you don't get to pick where you go, man. Like, they just send you there, right? And he and I had no influence over the position we were in, right? He didn't get to pick, I didn't get to pick, and yet we're there. And so certainly for me, I was empathetic about, I'd been a top pick and I understood what that was like coming into a new building. And it didn't need to be that way, right? And I think another thing, again, I mentioned the distraction. I'd spent so many years distracted. Even then, I remember when he got drafted, and again, the media, right? Every time I talked to him, they took your replacement. They moved up to the 10th pick. Well, how does that feel? What's that like? And like, I wasn't going to be distracted by it anymore, right? I wasn't going to look over my shoulder. Here, I knew I had the starting job. Andy had made that, very clear. And again, it was like year 13 for me. Like, you're not guaranteed anything at that point. I knew if I didn't play winning football, regardless of them having drafted Pat, like, they're going to go find somebody at the end of the year. And so I knew I had the opportunity before me, and again, determined that I wasn't going to be looking over my shoulder at all. And so that definitely played a big part of it. And I think this, honestly, like, if you're pissed off, like, to go back to the Brett thing, you're distracted, right? Like, if you're so to the point, like, every time you see this guy every single day that it's upsetting you, and like, you're got this vendetta, and like, I'm not going to help him. Like, you're distracted. Like, you're not doing your job, which is getting ready to play. And then I think that's the other thing about mentorship. It wasn't like hugs and kisses. It's not this, like, that's not what mentorship is, man. He got
a new shirt.
He got an up close look. It was nothing I said. I wasn't whispering him secrets to playing quarterback in the film room. He got an up close look for an entire year to seeing about. And again, I had year 13, like, my schedule, I had down to the minute, right? Like, I had 3 kids. I was so efficient with my time and so committed to being the best I could be. And he got an up close look at that. Everything I did, he was right there. And that was the instruction. And that's the way the QB room worked in Kansas City. And that's what makes this so brilliant. Everybody, you do it all together. And so again, he got to take from that what he liked, right? That what fit him, what he saw, how I went about my business. And again, I also don't think it's a coincidence that I had my career year, right? Like, as a motivator, like, I don't think that that's a coincidence at all. And so that's the brilliance of it. And it's not awesome when you're in it, right? Like, it's not that you don't love it, but it's certainly, you can respect. And I know I do as a football fan. And again, my journey, like, Andy had a plan, like, and not many teams do, right? Like, they just throw them out there and cross their fingers. And the brilliance of what's going on in Kansas City right now, that, everything about it, it's rare, and obviously it's working.
Last thing, weird isn't the right word, so I'm going to try to frame this better. But you have this terrible injury at the end of your career, and then we have access to your story. And I don't know that I've ever seen, like, a collective concern. People were really moved by your story. And the payoff of that is it's probably the highest your approval rating ever was throughout your entire career. Like, it just felt like a full circle moment where people were like, who was pretty good was out, man, I really liked him. It just, everyone got on the same page, because once they learned more about you, it seemed like everybody liked you. And I felt good for you in that moment.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm so grateful that I got to come back and play after my injury, because like the prognosis for so long was obviously so sideways, as they're like talking about cutting off my leg for a long time. And it was all kind of, even though I was documenting it at the time, like no one knew about the infection and how serious it had gotten and where I was at. And then obviously you know, the E60 airs kind of during COVID before I made my comeback. And so all that did finally get put out in the open, everything that I'd been dealing with. And the feedback, obviously, and support I got, I think, from football fans and teammates and opponents was like overwhelming. And then so to go take the field that later that fall and people understanding kind of the gravity of the situation was really cool, but also overwhelming in the sense that I never thought I'd actually take the field, Ryan. Like I was chasing it, but I never thought, again, my leg is so messed up. Like I never thought it would be in the cards. And so for that to finally, for my rehab to have progressed far enough that it was, is crazy. And, to run out there, that Rams game when I first played, as the backup, and then I run out there and, getting sacked by Aaron Donald and, on live TV in front of the country and getting back up, right? Like knowing that I'm okay, I'm not fragile, obviously changed my life. But more so, again, I go on to start 6 games. And the freedom I played with, right? Like, again, I never thought I'd play football again. I thought I'd lost it. I thought my career was over. And the gift to get to go back and play one more time, like you said about Jim, like I got to play 6 games. And I played, man, you want to talk about carefree. Like every play was a gift, right? Like I played like it was my last. Like they're not going to let me do this again, right? I would call my wife and tell her that every single game. Like this is probably going to be the last. They're not going to, And I didn't care what they said about me in the paper. I didn't care what anybody, you know what I'm saying? Like, so to juxtapose it, to have come, really full circle from how I started my career, overwhelmed with that crap, as the top pick, and then end my career in such a free space, was such a gift for me that I'll take with me for the rest of my life. And again, grateful for it. Grateful that I got to say goodbye to the game. I got to go out on my own terms. Those things matter. And, not everybody gets that gift. And again, how lucky and grateful I am for it.
And think about this. I mean, I know you mentioned golf and everything, but what an unbelievable excuse if your wife's like, you're playing a lot this week. And you'd be like, you know what? I could have lost my leg.
Totally. Yeah.
So,
like there's not much I say no to.
Every day's a gift.
As a physical challenge. And that also has for sure changed my perspective the rest of my life, no doubt. But when I start losing on the golf course, I will occasionally just start limping, try to
I'm sure it
see if I can work another stroke out of whoever I'm playing.
You can see his great interviews on ESPN. And again, he's got a podcast out with Shane Battier and Ravi Gupta on a lot of like leadership stuff, what makes teams work. New episodes have just come out, so they're out every week. And if you have a final plug on, I don't want to cut it short or anything, but if you want to add anything to it, that's fine. If you don't, that's also fine.
Yeah, it's fun. Glue guys, we talk about it's not a lot different than this interview and talk we just had, this conversation, and we talk about all kinds of fun stuff. We have awesome guests on. Man, we got to bring Urban Meyer, my college coach, who, just this crazy core philosophy about team building, and his, obviously affected my career, and just fun conversations like that between sports and business and different amazing leaders and people. And so it's been a ton of fun. And obviously Shane and Ravi are like, they're unbelievable. So it's been super cool.
Do you want to do your best recruiting story with us before you leave?
Well, I only had one offer, so it wasn't a lot of love for me. I mean, I was like an unrated, no stars. All I wanted to do is play Division I football, and no school thought I was good enough. And my high school running back was Reggie Bush. So we had every college in the country on our campus. I mean, it was like a movie. And, he was so good. And I did a lot of handing off, deservedly. And we never threw the ball, and I couldn't get 2 sniffs. And one school in the whole country thought I could play D1 football, and it was Utah. And man, I jumped at it, and it was cool. Obviously, Urban was not the coach at the time. My freshman year was a disaster, and then Urban came in and and Dan Mullen was my quarterback coach, and we were running this spread option what nobody had seen or heard of, and changed my life. We went on a run, went undefeated, broke the BCS. All of a sudden, I'm at the Heisman finals with Reggie, which was even eerier.
Was Reggie like, what?
He's like, what are you doing here? I'm supposed to be, we all, like, in high school, we would talk about it. Like, Reggie's going to win the Heisman one day. And I'm sure a lot of people look at their high school running back who's pretty good and say that, but like, we knew it. No, it was like, no, he really is. And he was that good. And so surreal to like come back and see him, 2 years later in New York. And I was like, I had no business being there. And then, and then he really messed it up. We could have been the first high school teammates to go number 1, and he had to fall to number 2, the total slacker. Messed up a good thing. So
that's crazy. So no one offered you, no D schools.
No. So Aaron and I, like that for everybody out there, man, that year we were same class. Aaron had no offers either. We went to JC, right? And then he only gets an offer by Cal by luck. They're looking at his tight end. And I think for a lot of kids out there, man, it shows you, right? Like, I still know the Elite 11 quarterbacks my year, and not many of them made it, and so they don't always know.
I'm trying to remember the quarterback's name who had been chanted after the Eagles loss, but I can't go through your game log.
Carr.
Here. Oh, it was David Carr.
Yeah. I think they were yelling, "We want Carr." I don't know. It was on national TV.
Alex, this was incredible, man. I can't thank you enough. This was just a great interview. Honestly, you're really good at this. So I'm sure the podcast will do well. I can't wait to check it out. And thanks for the time today.
Appreciate it, man. The feeling's mutual.
This is going to be a lot of fun. Always get excited about the chance to catch up with one of country music's biggest stars, Dierks Bentley. 18 number 1 hits. I was researching him this morning. I was like, damn, that's a lot.
Crazy.
And even longer, I met him over 30 years ago, back when we were just a couple skinny kids trying to figure it out. Dierks Bentley, what's up, man?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. It's great to see you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that I want to get to, and it's been a little while, but I got my bottle of Row 94 whiskey fresh off the shelves, ready to go. Probably not going to drink it during the interview because it'll probably get out of hand here a little bit. But
I'll make it a little more fun. I'll drink for the two of us.
What went into this, man? I know how you are. You were on it early, so full circle here.
Well, yeah, I opened up. I don't know really where to start. I was going to start with that. I opened up a bar called Whiskey Row in Arizona in 2012, but then I'd really have to probably take it back to Vermont with you and the boys, and just all the fun we had up there. I definitely drank a lot of bourbon in those days, and really even further back to just falling in love with country music when I was about 17. And the guy I really liked was Hank Jr. and Jim Beam was kind of synonymous with Hank. It still is in some ways. So probably that's when I first really started to get into the bourbon. And back then it was more about just how quickly can you get it to your liver. And for many years on the road, a lot like that too. But during COVID, I'd always wanted to have my own, whiskey in my own bars. I just really didn't have time I needed to kind of really get into it. And during COVID, I was able to really kind of use that time to start just thinking about opportunities and exploring avenues to kind of make it a possibility. And so this is the result of that. Last 4 years, I've really put a lot of time into just obviously finding the right, juice and going to a lot of different distilleries to, find what I wanted to find, and then work with a buddy to try to get the right price point and just the whole business side of it as well. So the fact that you have a bottle in your hand still is weird to me because I've been, I just can't believe it's actually out after all this time.
Yeah, look, Whiskey Row has been a lot of fun, especially I think we hit it up right when it had opened, and we had Super Bowl week that week.
That's right,
in Arizona.
That's right.
And so we were posting. I've had like 2 runs.
I carried my wife out of the bar that night. I remember that real well. I think there was a fight broke out between Kid Rock and somebody, or maybe Aldine and somebody else.
Yeah, Aldine was in your corner, and it was funny too because I was with a couple people and we had texted. And I said, we're good. And it was mayhem, right? It was mayhem.
Yeah.
And your bouncer, I was like, look, I'm texting with him. I know you get 1 million of these a night, but he's like waiting for me to come in. And the guy was like, if you're bullshitting me and I walk you over to him, like I'm taking you out. And I was like, totally understood. Totally understood. And then we get over there and there was a slight delay on the processing. And he looks at me like, what? And then it worked out great. And you're right. Like Kid Rock was next to us. And it was funny because Darius Rucker was with you guys. And he's a huge sports fan. So it was really nice to me. And then he was like, where are we going to next? And then I think Kid Rock grabbed him and he was like, you're out. And I was like, yeah, I would go with Kid Rock too.
You got a great memory, dude. That's unbelievable.
Well, that was a big moment for me. That was just a night.
So you've been doing
another night on the road.
The stats and highlights over the last, 15 years, and I've been just 20 years, I guess. I've just been drinking alcohol and losing my memory. So I think you made the better choice of the long-term health of your mind and body.
I love the story, and it's really cool that this is happening now because I was with all the UVM guys that you'd met. For those that don't know, Dierks and I went to school together for a year, and I didn't really realize it at the time, and certainly trying to fulfill certain things in my career. And I know we talked about this, I think, over 10 years ago on ESPN. So if you don't mind doing it again with the audience, where I imagine over 90% of these people don't know it, is that, and I'll tell part of the story, but I've told the story to other people. I've told it on the air because it's incredibly inspirational. And it speaks to kind of like knowing what you think your purpose is in the face of like, this probably isn't going to work out. But Dierks, we hung out all freshman year. We were good friends. And then just at the end of the year, Dierks tells an entire room of guys in our fraternity, he's like, hey, look, music is in my heart. I need to follow it. And I'm going to Nashville and I'm transferring to Vanderbilt. And dudes are like, what are you, out of your mind? Like you do karaoke by yourself and you think and it's just, guys can be really tough on guys, especially that group.
Yeah.
And to think 30 years later, like where this has gone, where you just knew something earlier than most people ever know. Yeah. And it's something all of us still talk about. And I think about it and it becomes more inspirational when I realize what that was for you to decide to do that.
Well, yeah, I still remember, I think it was JP. He's like, we have CMT. You can just watch CMT up here. I'm like, it's more than that. I actually want to be on CMT. But it's crazy. Look back on it. I have older kids now that one's learning to drive, and you try to think about that from their perspective compared to the parent looking down and going, they don't have any fear. They have all the confidence in the world, and they're just getting behind the wheel of the car and doing things. And as a parent, you're going, oh my God, it's so dangerous. And I think back about that time of just at UVM and just making that decision. Yeah, there was no fear. It was all just like almost being pulled along by a dream, more like I almost didn't even have a choice. I was just being dragged forward in some ways. And I always feel really lucky to have had that dream and something to chase like that. But, looking back on it, there's a big leap of faith to take, but you find something you love. And I feel really lucky about that. Just like you have, a lot of our friends have, and you find that thing that you love. You feel so fortunate because it gives you something to aim for, to shoot for. And whether it works out or not, like a lot of songs talk about, the journey is sometimes more important than the actual results, and just to go chase something and take a shot at it. There's a lot of guys that, I'm here on Lower Broadway. I'm in my bar right now here on Whiskey Row in Nashville. And I think about a lot of guys that I used to play with on Lower Broadway back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And some of those guys didn't go on to get a major record label deal and all that stuff. But I still see them now on the backside of it all, and they got kids and they're coming back from hunting or something, or I see them at a sporting event. Life's kind of the great equalizer where you all meet up again at some point down the road, right? No matter what you did, you want to, and the stories you want to tell are like, hey, what did you go for? What did you shoot for? Tell us how high you went. No one wants to hear about the landing. What did you take a shot at? And so I feel fortunate that I had this thing to chase down. Same time, there's so many great stories out there, and I love catching up with people I haven't seen in a while and hearing about what they did. But it was wild how it all worked out for me, for sure.
But just to put it like fully in perspective, you're 18 and we've gone through our freshman year. You weren't in a band. No. You just really liked country music.
I loved it.
So did you have internal debates? And just for the record too, like Dierks was actually like book smarter than all of us too. But did you have some? Yeah, you were
I
were
never,
pretty incredible.
I know I look back at my GPA in high school to see what I had. I was like a 2.7 cumulative. And then in college, though, that freshman year at UVM, I knew I was going to transfer. I think I got my highest GPA ever, which was like a 3.4. So I wasn't that smart, but I was smart for the one semester that I really needed to be smart, which is that fall semester at UVM. I just retook a bunch of courses over again.
Well, what you did was the legendary. Guys still talk about it. Is
Yeah.
you would hit up all of us, be like, "Hey, it's Tuesday. You want to do something?" Be like, "It's Tuesday. Like, you can't do anything." It'd be like, "How is this guy going to pull any grades together?" And then, like 2 weeks before finals, the guy would disappear. He would go in a hotel, like study his mind, like, and then he would take. I think you took all of your exams like on the same day, so then you could ski the rest of exam week while the rest of us were all freaking out.
Yeah.
But
I wish I just stayed. We just all stayed in Vermont. I mean, it's what a great state. Looking back on it now, I mean, there's just so much outdoor living in Vermont. But Nashville's a big city.
Yeah, a few more recording studios there. But whenever I'm back, I usually go back every summer. And if I go to JP's and then it comes up that like no one will ever believe me, I'm like, he started right over there doing karaoke, but none of us could ever get in. I usually go back for I had a grandmother, she passed, she was 94. So it's, but so I always had family that was up there. But then I don't know how much you know, but when everybody left and had graduated, I still had another semester.
Yeah.
So I stayed, and it was funny because I'd always thought that everybody said like, "Oh, UVM 5 years and it's going to be great." All these guys, and everybody graduated on time that year. Like nobody was around. So I was still there going, "Dude, everybody's gone. Like what happened to the plan?" I became like a local for a couple years. I was running another bar for somebody else, and I was finishing it up. And then I took a sports internship there at the local station, and it was starting to plant the seeds a little bit, right? But then it still took like another 3 years for me to go, okay, you actually need to leave this place. But when you were having like the internal debate with yourself, like, hey, can I actually be a country music guy with my background? Like, were there moments earlier where you told yourself, okay, this is insane. Like, I can't actually do this. And then you had to talk yourself into it.
Well, so many moments like that. When I first moved to town, everyone was kind of dressed a certain way and looked a certain way. And I certainly didn't look that way. A lot of people wearing cowboy hats and starched Wranglers. And I was like, oh man, maybe I don't belong here, but I just.
The North Face pull up.
What's that?
The North Face pull up didn't work.
No, the North Face pull up and the mountain bike wasn't. That was not a lot of people running around town like that. But I just love the music, man. I love the music. How many nights I spent with Harlan, listening to Hank Jr. drinking, Jack and Cokes or Beam and Coke. I just love listening to it. And so I got a job at the Country Music Association the first day I got here, an internship, just to kind of try to find a route. And really what happened for me, I was listening to music all over town, trying to write songs, but I walked into a bar called the Station Inn, which is a bluegrass, like hole-in-the-wall acoustic music dive bar. I mean, popcorn and cold beer, but all they serve in there. It holds about 200 people. Looks like a jail cell on the outside. It's still here, surrounded by multi-billion-dollar, high rises now. But back in the day, it was the only thing in this part of town. I walked in there, and it's a bunch of guys my age playing banjo, fiddle, mandolin, upright bass, and they're singing bluegrass songs I'd never heard of. But they're also doing a bunch of Johnny Cash and George Jones songs as well. So. And it's just a great community. It wasn't about your clothing. It wasn't about your starched Wranglers and your cowboy hat. These guys were wearing tennis shoes and baggy jeans, It was all about the music. It was about the love of the music. And I fell in with that crowd. And that's kind of where I got the foundation to do my, to start from. So, yeah, wild ride. No, there's definitely no course planned out or, agenda or help. I didn't know anybody here at all. But just followed my muse and followed the love of the music, and it led me to here, talking to you, catching up, drinking some bourbon.
What was the first? Okay, I'm actually going on stage to do this moment like for you.
What was the first? What?
Being on stage where it's real, like I'm actually going to sing.
Yeah, for me, it really started just little random gigs where I'd play for somebody's crawfish New Orleans, Nashville party for Mardi Gras or some sort of wedding thing or a backyard barbecue or a tailgate party where I had my PA system was very small and powered by a generator where every time I touched the microphone, my lip would like get numb from a shock because it wasn't grounded properly. But I remember the first time, and I don't remember much. I mean, my memory is so bad, but I remember the first time I walked out of the house I was staying in with my guitar in my hand. holding the case of the guitar and thinking I was walking to a gig, go get paid. And I remember thinking how cool it was to actually be making money with my guitar. I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is so cool. I'm actually going to a gig right now. I'm going to get paid because I've been walked to the house many times to go do writers' nights and go perform in places for free, but actually have a gig and that was a good feeling.
I've always wanted to ask you this because like there has to be that adrenaline rush, that feeling being on stage and I didn't even really like country music. And then the first few times I saw you, and part of it was just being so proud of your friend, but another part of it was just you're so much fun. Your shows are so much fun. I was talking to Sully about it this past weekend, and
Sully comes to a lot of shows. He's great.
Yeah. He's like, I've been over 20 times and I don't even like country music that much. He goes, I just have so much fun. Like you created an atmosphere, a fun atmosphere with these shows. Do you ever you have to, because all of us, like granted, I'm just on air talking about sports, but be like, I don't have it today. What are the days like when you have to go out on stage? Like I am worn out and yet everybody's expecting you to be at your best.
I am tired a lot on the road. I talked to Keith Urban and I were talking about like, what does it take to be a country singer? And like the first requirement is just like, are you able to get by without a lot of sleep? For any probably traveling salesman, which is kind of what we are. I mean, you're riding the bus and just, I don't sleep well on the bus, never have. I used to think I slept well, but that's back when I was drinking a lot more than I am now. And I realized I was just passing out for about, solid 10, 15 years. And then when I stopped drinking as much, I'm like, oh, I really don't sleep well on these things. And that led to all sorts of other problems. But it's so fun though. Yeah, it's a little tired. Everyone's tired. The crew's tired. Those guys get up so early to start hanging lights and sound. And so we're all kind of in that same weird space together. But, come, 5 o'clock, I usually do a little performance for some VIP folks and I do some meet and greets and showtime. You start mixing a drink and walk out on stage and boom. It doesn't matter if I haven't slept for days on end or if I just had the best night of sleep ever before. It's always the same feeling of like pure adrenaline, excitement, joy, wonder, gratitude, fear. It's all mixed together. And you're just, for the next 2 hours, it's just a total roller coaster. It's the only time in my life where I'm totally present. And I've read a lot of books on presence. The older you get, the more you're kind of getting that whole mindset of like trying to be present where you are. I'm not very good at it. I'm bad about being on my phone. I'm not good at it. But when I'm on stage, I think part of the fun of entertaining and doing that is that you're just there. You're nowhere else. You can't be anywhere else. You have to be like in the moment. It's you can't think too much about the song or the lyrics or start forgetting words. You just have to like be totally present in what you're doing. And that's probably my favorite thing about it all. But yeah, it's like anybody else that works. Shoot, and there's so many people who work so many hard jobs. This is not my daughter one day was telling somebody asked where I was, and she goes, he's singing, and he's not at work. He's singing. I don't think they consider what I do work, and they're right. I don't really consider that either. It's so fun doing what we do, and I love it.
It took me a while, as you can attest to, like we'd get so excited, like, hey, Dierks is in town. And then as I got older and realized like some of the demands that I had, I was like, wait, this guy has to do this. There's a me in every city that he goes to that thinks like, hey, this is my night. But like, you're just, this is the stop. And then we're going somewhere else. So it took me, I think there was one late night that we had where, I don't know, did you ever get it? I sent you a Sega Genesis with 94 in it as a thank you. I sent it to the Nashville address.
What?
Yeah, I wanted it for you. I wanted you to have it on the bus. That was years ago. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something. I was like, you've done me so many favors. I go, I'm going to do Dierks a favor. And I'm going to hook up
94 in it?
Yeah, with 94 in it.
And I
sent it to the for the bus.
And you don't even talk. You guys don't even talk about hockey in your show. You still did that for me. Wow.
We did a preview with Bucci the other day.
Oh, you did? Oh, shit, I missed it.
Yeah, we did. Well, I'll send you the link to it. I guess the point of it all is like you're something that everybody else is so fired up about, and you at some point have to be like, hey, I've got like 40 of these.
Right. No. I love it. I mean, having friends at the shows, when you come out and friends come out, it really is what makes the shows unique for us. And I have to do it at a certain time of the day. The show. It's managing the cell phone, and which just summer requests, because you got people who are coming to the show that night. You got people that are hitting you up about a show in 2 weeks. You got people hitting you up about a show in a couple months, and there's several interactions back and forth per text.
Yeah.
That's just something I had to kind of categorize and do at a certain time of the week. But I love walking in the room and seeing who's there. And I guess spend a half hour, whatever it is, sometimes longer, catching up with people. Sometimes after the show too. It really makes the show fun because you see the show through your friends' eyes. They're so excited to be there, and stuff that you kind of don't take for granted, but stuff that just kind of feels commonplace now. I get to borrow like your excitement when you come out, or Sully comes out. I get to borrow his excitement and make that my own for a little bit. And certainly makes you, when you're performing on stage, there's almost like a couple different shows going on while I'm on stage. There's a show amongst just the guys in the band. We're all have inside jokes and stuff that's happening on stage. That's kind of like our own little show. And then there's the shows happening for the people in the first like 6 rows where they can kind of catch the little subtle, mostly stupid bits that we've come up with over the years. It's like trying to it's just dumb stuff that we do. Like little fights that are going on, between us during the show. And then there's obviously the big show. I'm performing in some ways for my crew that watches this show every single night. I get self-conscious of doing the same things over and over on stage, or saying the same things over and over, because I don't know. There's I want my crew to love watching the show too. But then certainly for your close friends that come out to the show, there's that performance going on as well. So I love it when friends come out. It really makes it does make each stop unique in that way, for sure.
Okay, we'll finish up here and we'll get another plug for the whiskey. But I always like asking creative.
Baby. Row 94. College tuition going up.
When I think about a writer who writes this amazing movie out of the jump, sometimes I'll think about if you're wired that way and you want to be creative and you want to try maybe the first thing you've been thinking about for so long that you have it figured out, and then you've got to follow it up. And for some people in music, that certainly doesn't happen. They have the one song that pops and then you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Creatively, to be this many years into it, this many albums into it, what do you search for where you feel like, I'm not taking such a departure that the fan base is thinking, what the hell's Dierks doing here on this one? But yet you feel fulfilled and you feel like you still have that creative energy, that creative vision that you had when you first started.
Oh man, that's a great question. I just shot something this morning for CBS Sunday Morning. Hence, I don't know if you can see all my makeup and how good I look, Ryan.
Look great. You always look good.
We were just downstairs and at the bar. And the guy I've known for a while, he's a producer of the show. And he goes, man, your last album, all your albums, they really speak to me, because you and I are the same age. We're kind of, maturing at the same level. And he goes, your albums always seem to hit me right where I am in my life. And I said, yeah, because I try to make records that reflect where I am now. Not, there's a lot of country music's nostalgia and a lot of songs about when you're running hard, when you're 17. And I certainly have some of the songs, but I do try to make records that reflect just what I'm feeling now. And that's what interests me, trying to make a record that, speaks to me. I'm trying to make music that's for me. I'm not trying to make a record that you like or somebody likes. I'm not chasing that. I'm trying to make something that I will, 10 years from now, I can pull that back off the shelf and be like, I was really proud of that record. It really reflected where I was at the time. And not to promote the whiskey, but it's the same thing with that. It's like something that I drink, something that I made it for me. And from the label, obviously the juice, to the label, everything about it is for me. And I hope people like it, but I ultimately kind of made something that I would like. So just the music, like this next record I'm working on, I'm always waiting for some sort of theme that excites me. So the last record, Gold, the record before that was called The Mountain, and I had moved to Colorado. I lived there for a little while. Gold was kind of that song. It might be gravel, but it feels like gold. It always made me think about Nashville. It's coming back to live here. There's a lot of things I did not like about Nashville. I've been there too long and kind of grown a little weary of some of the big city stuff, but it's such a great town, and I think that song was one of the last songs I wrote for the record. And it was a little bit of just like, man, there's a lot of gold in this town. I kind of need a little bit of a break from it. So this next record, this next record is going to come out in June. So I got a little ways to work on it, but the feeling right now is just about songs and about the writing community in this town. And many great songwriters are on this town, and how the song always seems to find you. There's always a song out there that comes and like finds you and takes you back to a certain place in your life or the past or present. And so it's really, I think this album's really going to focus just on songs and just how they hit me and how they really steered my life and kind of some ways a love letter to Nashville, all the great songwriters here.
Well, I can't wait, man. I mean, you've gotten me to dig into country in a way that I never would have when we first met.
It's hot, man. Country music's never, just think it can't get any bigger. It's like, it's just everywhere right now. It's crazy.
I had to drive for like 12 hours straight. I was in Iceland. I couldn't find a hotel on one side of the island. So I had to go all the way back. And I just was like, you know what? 12 hours and the sun wasn't going down. It was just right at me.
What were you doing in Iceland?
I just went, man. I went for like 10 days, explored the whole I drove the entire outer ring of Iceland in 10 days. Yeah.
Did you go by that airplane, the Black Beach, the airplane that crashed on the beach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I almost got my Land Rover stuck there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Iceland's amazing. I was there for about 72 hours, maybe, and working, but I'd love to go back and hang.
Well, we'll do it.
I think Nashville's getting
a lot
direct
smaller.
flights to Iceland. Man, Nashville's getting a direct flight to Iceland. Isn't that crazy?
It's not that far. I flew from LA to Minneapolis, and then from Minneapolis to Reykjavik, it was, I think, 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, I might meet someone this week, and then I'll just commute long distance Iceland. Like, this is
that's a thought that's never crossed my mind in about 20 years, but I'm glad you're out there living the dream.
All right. So final word on Row 94.
Row 94.
I like that you said you like it. So that means, because I know you, that you weren't going to do this unless you liked it. I'll tell you what, next time you're doing the Redondo Beach thing or whatever, I'll organize a little tasting party for you.
That'd be fun, dude.
Spots in town.
It had to be something that was like 4 years old. So it's like, it's old. It's not like new whiskey. There's a lot of stuff out there that's being promoted that I know the guys aren't drinking behind the door when the door's closed, because nobody's drinking young whiskey. So it's 4 years old. And it's from the 10th oldest distillery here up in Owensboro, Kentucky. And to me, I always say, country music's is in Nashville and bourbon's in Kentucky. If it's not from Kentucky, I don't want to drink it. But I love the way it turned out. It's good enough for a fancy place. It's good enough for JP's. They're on Main Street in Burlington, Vermont. It works everywhere. Red Solo cup or a rocks glass. So I love the way it turned out, and I'd love to have some with you. Love to hear what you think of it.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Bourbon?
We're gonna get. Yeah, I do. I would say
not your go-to.
It's not my go-to because it's a special occasion. I think the Jim Beam run that we went on.
Yeah, I didn't drink brown liquor for a while after those years, but
I remember. I think it was like 10 years after, and somebody's like, "You used to drink Beam with Coke all the time." I was like, "Do you want one?" And I go, "You know what? I loved him. Let's do it." And then, you're a little bit older. You go, "How did we drink this,
I know,
this
man.
much?"
Well, the Coke just kills it. That sugar is like, I can't believe we drank it that way.
What the hell's wrong with us?
Yeah.
Well, at least we figured out the answer at some point. Again, Row 94, check it out in stores now. We should get a case up to JP's. And as you know, every time I get a chance to catch up with you, man, I'm just so happy for you. So proud for you, man.
Thanks, dude. Likewise, your success, man. Absolutely.
Yeah,
how are the Titans looking?
Not good at all. But are you more of a hockey guy still? People don't know this.
I love the Titans. So the Titans in '98, right? We went to I think it was '98. We went to the Super Bowl. And I was there for all that, and I followed them throughout the years. And I love the Titans. Man, it's hard. It's hard. They make it hard, and I wish they didn't make it so hard. But I do feel like now is a good time to get in for anybody that's moving to town, because we've got the new stadium going up. It's going to bring new energy into the city. There's no reason why we shouldn't have a great team. And I don't know, but yeah, I'm a little more. My son plays travel hockey, and that's a little more of what I'm into.
Yeah, you're way more of a hockey guy, and he used to play with the Red Wings in '94. You just yelled "dangle, dangle, dangle" in your face the entire time with Yzerman, and he wouldn't even look at the screen. He was so good with the forwards. He would just go dangle, 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 dangle. He had it was an unnatural approach. So he was a really tough matchup in '94.
The Red Wings in '94, you could jam the puck in from the side. There's a glitch in the game, so you came around the outside and just went straight to the goal. You could jam the puck in. I'm gonna have to find that game.
I always loved playing with Pavel. So,
Pavel, that's my guy.
Yeah. So it was good. And then, I don't know. I mean,
I can't
there's
play
never
the new
been a
stuff.
game.
My son has a PS5. He does all the Fortnite. the hockey, it's way too complicated. I might try to find that see where you sent that thing. Maybe it's sitting in the office still, because that would be
Yeah, he probably thought it was some lunatic fan. It was like,
Yeah.
is there a bomb in this thing? No, it's one of the most mature, nicest things I've ever
You
done.
really did.
I was like, give me your address. And then I sent it. And then I should have just sent it to an assistant or something.
Yes.
That way they would have known it was from me.
Yeah, my wife.
Hey, man, you're the best. Congrats on everything. Row 94. Right. Check it out now, and I'll see you soon on the road.
Okay, buddy. Right? Tell the boys hi.
The Alliance marches on with only 2 legions stationed. So Rudy Borgon flying back Spotify week. Maybe we'll do a little recap of that before Life Advice. So it's just Kyle and I right now. Lost last week. Sorry. Kyle, you have everybody's picks. Then I'll throw my pick in at the end and see where the payout is. All right?
Yeah. So, shout out to Alex Smith. Talk about playing free. I mean, I don't care what anyone says about me at this point because it's just funny now. I'm going to go with mine. I was trying to go with Wargon's vibes because he mentioned that he was hot. And so I just took Penn State -6.5. That was actually his pick. And then as a gentleman, he was like, you know what? I like Minnesota. So I'm taking Penn State -6.5. Wargon has just taken the Minnesota money line. Cerruti is dabbling in the alternates, and he's going to take the over in Texas Vanderbilt. It's alternate over at 47.5. And what is it that you have?
No one likes this pick. Washington is +6.5 at Indiana. Indiana's on the backup quarterback, but he's actually played. Trace Jackson Davis's younger brother, huge kid. So he's actually gone out there and run around a bit. Washington just got destroyed. So nobody would likely be betting Washington +6.5 with the fanfare around Indiana football this week. But we're going to alt this one. So give me Washington +10.5. And what's that payout?
I mean, +538. I mean, we're usually aiming for the 450, and we just kept going up and up. It's like, how high can we take it? And
right. Let's make it even harder. 538 is good election time. This podcast has been accused a few times the last few weeks of trying to swing the election, which I appreciate that you think our platform is that powerful. So look, that's what it is then. Run it back. Recap it for us one more time.
All right. We've got Penn State -6.5. We've got the alternate over 47.5 with Texas Vanderbilt. We are taking the Minnesota money line, and we are Washington +10.5.
Okay. All right. Couch money research. Here's what we've got. Couch, I'm so tempted to give out the Giants under at 15.5. Primetime Giants. I kind of feel like I have to. But as soon as I do, they're going to score like 28 points. So I'm going to go Bears -2.5. Daniels did not practice for Washington on Thursday. That line is clearly telling you people think he's not going to play. By the time this taping, maybe we'll even know, or when this comes out. But as of right now, we don't know. That's going to be fun. You got Bears -2.5. Jaden's coming out of the tunnel. But this is really more about my Bears and the disrespect towards Caleb as Jaden got off to this terrific start. So it's a little more emotional maybe than just the couch. The money is fading. You want to talk about no one on the Titans? 96% of the money, 90+% of the bets, according to Action Network, are on the other side of this with Detroit. So no one is on the Titans. You are on the Titans +11.5. Although I was told this morning, it was like, yeah, be careful with that one. I was like, dude, be careful. Like I'm giving out the Titans against maybe the second, third best team in the NFL. And the research on this one is Browns +8.5. Browns +8.5. New vibe around the facility at home. Divisional rival, the Baltimore Ravens. So opened -9.5. It's now 8.5. So there's couch money research for this week. You can see all of these lines on sportsbook.fanduel.com.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari, 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life advice. Just Kyle and the Rye guy.
Dual threat.
Two-seater. Yeah.
Let's go.
Two-seater. I was looking at trucks online the other night, and I thought, you know what? Bring back bench seating. Milton style. Because I used to have a truck that had a bench, and my buddy was like, you have to drive through random towns in Vermont with your arm around your girlfriend. Just because Milton, Vermont, almost no one will get the reference, but it was just like, we used to call it Milton style. And she was up, she was game, you know, she thought it was hilarious and thought it was cute. And I would maybe, you know, fresh off of playing pickup hoops, shirt off, driving around in the pickup bench and just arm around her, being like, let's get some soft serve and play mini golf in Georgia, Vermont.
Maybe catch you driving later.
Yeah, right. Now, I know some of you creepers are getting weird about, you know, that's not what we're talking about. Just two people in love and making sure
Milton
people
style.
know as you drive around. So, yeah, I started looking at trucks going like, and there's a bench option for this one. And I thought, bring it back. Bring it back. Those consoles, just mints and sunglasses and fucking chargers and USB ports and all this stuff. You're like, what about love? Right?
Who would argue with that? Who would argue with that?
I don't even know how we got on this. The point is that everybody was here, and Kyle came over to my house last night with Cerruti and Morgan, aka Oregon. And I don't know. Do we have to do the full recap with? I feel like we have to do the full recap with everybody because it also wasn't that exciting. So,
yeah, I mean they're gonna have different things. You know, I was like, you know, don't start opening his drawers and stuff like that. Don't do that. I was very curious. Obviously, I held it together. I'd like to hear what they thought happened. So I think we can just wait for them. But it was great. Your boys got some golf clubs now. Dressed for golf. I'm not even going to golf today, but I just was like playing dress up right now in my office. It's pretty good.
Yeah, so we hooked Kyle up with some used golf clubs from TaylorMade. I would say both nice sets of irons, a really nice driver, a not so great driver. I think that Callaway fairway rescue was really nice too. And then I screwed up because I forgot that I'd ordered this Titleist utility iron back when I was going full gear mode, and I couldn't find it in my garage for the longest time. And as I was packing up the bag,
I hated this part. It kind of ruined the ending for me, though.
No,
because you did it twice. The one thing you were like, "Oh fuck, I'm giving you that," and I was like, "Hold on, take it out." And you're like, "No, you're good.
It's in the bag."
Okay, and then you're like, "Oh shit, the utility iron is in there," and I'm like, "Here, let me grab it." And you're like, "No," and I was like, "Wait a second, it was 100% good. Now I feel like it's 98% good vibes. But if you're good, I'm good."
The reason I don't need it is it's a 4-iron utility club, and
dude, I love that. Just
iron,
line drive that shit out of a bad spot.
I don't need it. So
well, thanks so much,
man. And it's custom. It's a custom shaft on that. So
I'm gonna unwrap it at Roosevelt and
I can't wait.
I can't wait either. I've been golf poor. You know, I was like golf homeless. Now I got that second beach house too. Like this is great.
See, that's what we all love about Kyle. Simple pleasures. Because I don't even know if you're golf middle class with those irons, but I don't want to ruin the idea that you're not, you know, eating shrimp with all you can drink pina coladas in Fort Lauderdale. All right. We got a lot of people really worried about Ed and Ed's wife.
Yeah.
Like this email, Ed 1,000,000% pumped his buddy's wife. It's a no-brainer. Okay, thanks.
That's like the worst. The worst demeanor friends. You know, hearing the story and giving it that spin. Like I think you do need to look into it a little bit, but it's just I could just tell there's some guys in my group I would tell that story to, and they would like enjoy saying what that guy just said. They would want
it to be bad. Yeah. That frustrates me too. With just the way guys can be, some people just want to believe everything's terrible. I read the email again this morning about Ed. So again, the emailer wasn't Ed. Ed was the new buddy. That there was a mention in the email about her location being somewhere different than Ed's house. And then she said she was back at, remember?
Did they go get more booze, you think?
I don't know.
Yeah, that part's weird.
I would have to know more about
that.
her. Like, is that in her DNA that she could just get hammered on a Saturday and then not text you? Like, has that ever happened before? Because the good thing is if it actually has happened before, then you have less to worry about. Right? That which is
like she's got a protocol here.
It's a bit like Tom and cousin Greg, where it's like, I want the insurance. And then Tom says, the insurance, in fact, makes you a threat. Whereas if you were uninsured, the irony would be that you were safe. But they are, in fact, not receipts. Okay. I was like, all right. Yeah, I caught that line.
Yeah.
All right. Slumlord. Let's try this one. Longtime listener, gym stats, not impressive. Former college athlete, just trying to recapture, maintain some of my former self. I'm 35. I live in the Southeast. Roughly 5 years ago, I turned a residence into a rental property. Since then, I've acquired 2 other properties. 2.5 years ago, I purchased a single-family home purely as a rental property. This is the only non-condo townhome in a small portfolio. What about this guy, though? 35, just putting it together. The area of this town this is in is very much up and coming, which ends up being very important to the story. I do not use a property manager for any of the rentals. I actively manage them and deal with the issues in addition to my full-time career.
Wow.
Well, good for you. Because I know, like, you look into property management and you're like, man, is this worth it? And it's definitely worth it if you don't want to deal with it. But if you can pull it off, I remember the first rental property I had, I was over there with, fucking corkscrew and duct tape trying to figure out the garage door. And then I fixed it, and I was so proud of myself. And the tenant was like, "I can't believe you know how to do this stuff."
Where'd you put the corkscrew?
No, it's a joke. But
okay.
I got a call 7 days later, and she was like, "It doesn't work." It's like, let's get somebody over there that has a ladder, that doesn't rent ladders, owns them. This single family home is the property I'm hoping to get advice on. I've had the same tenant in this house from the time I started renting, just over 2 years. And after the 2-year mark, I allowed the lease to be converted to a month-to-month lease with no change in rate. The only condition is that if I wanted the tenant out or if the tenant wanted to leave, there was supposed to be a 30-day notice. The tenant was almost always late in turning in rent. I always work with them and never charge a late fee just to be nice and accommodating. Definitely a mistake. Yeah, you could tell. All right. So there's one, wherever the rest of this is going, let's make sure we hammer that lesson as well. The tenant told me The tenant told me a week in October they were leaving the following week. They refused to pay me rent in October and ended up officially getting out of the house on the 20th, I think. Here comes the issues. I haven't been able to get a hold of my tenants. The last I heard from them was on the 19th, saying they would have everything out by the 20th and would be ready for a walkthrough. I've gone to the house every day and it doesn't appear anyone is there. There's furniture and trash all over the front yard. I've sent an eviction notice, which I believe takes 7 days to take effect in my state. Question for the guy. Should I remove all the stuff in there and take it to the dump? Legally, because I haven't heard from them, I'm worried they have recourse to come after me because I didn't give them a 30-day notice. Additionally, they let their dogs into the crawl space of the house that destroyed the ductwork. Conservatively, it's going to cost me about $10,000 to fix it, not to mention what I need to fix on the inside as I haven't been in the house in a while. Should I take them to small claims court or just cut my losses? I can afford the repairs, but knowing that these people are getting away with this just kills me. Any advice would be helpful. I am certainly not educated enough, despite renting a few places, to know what the legal ramifications are for this. And I think every state is pretty different. So look, the first thing that you learned is you can't be nice to anybody when you're going to be renting properties.
Inch mile situation. Yeah.
Yeah. It sucks because, you're going to have great tenants. You're going to have this, because everybody you would think be like, oh yeah, it's okay. There's a couple days late. Like stuff happens, right? Like, oh, we're not sure what we're doing. All right. Well, kind of just let me know, try to give me a heads up. We don't need to get everybody involved in all this. And most times that transaction works out perfect because people are reasonable for the most part. People are not looking to take advantage of everybody. Then you get some asshole who looks at the opportunity and is like, oh, this guy's like a little weak or he's a little understanding, he's a little forgiving. Like the one time I had a guy that rented a place from me and pissed on my mattresses, decided to deal with my realtor behind my back and do like a night to night prorated based on what the monthly rent was. And then he would let me know when he was going to move out and then ruined a couple other things. And then of course was demanding his security deposit like a day after he had left. By the way, when I was like, when are you leaving? He's like, we're not sure yet. It's like, I'm kind of doing you a pretty big solid here. And this night-to-night thing being prorated on the monthly isn't really cool either. And guess what? That guy didn't give a fuck because he got over on me. And then from that point on, it's like, okay, well, now I have to be strict about all of this stuff because if you keep renting properties, you're going to have somebody that takes advantage of it. As far as getting their stuff out of there, I mean, I know what you're saying. I don't have the legal answer. I would be at the dump with all of their shit immediately. I would also, you must have somebody who's a lawyer, who's a friend that understands these laws better. My concern would be, even if you go after them, if they're willing to do this, like this is kind of like who was it? George with the mattress. This is like a George situation where this guy's going to be completely unfazed by any letter of mail that comes to him. If you can even figure out where to mail him anything. They likely abandoned your place. They knew that they trashed it. They're probably not coming back for that stuff. Yeah, I guess there's some path where you get a call in 2 months being like, hey, where's my stuff? But I would go after them assuming you were going to lose so that you're not obsessing over it. It's not something you're wasting a ton of man hours on. You're not wasting a ton of legal fees on. I would go after them thinking anything is a win because it's still probably going to be some kind of loss for you.
Yeah, this classic Judy case. I mean, Judy's on your side, especially if you've got, text and stuff like that. I don't know about, I think there's a lot of protection for renters. If you're saying an eviction notice is only 7 days in your state, I imagine there's less. And I imagine you're, definitely not in California.
It sounds like it's a little stricter than California.
Well, less strict, right? You would say like there's less rent protection in this state. They're saying a eviction notice takes 7 days. Like that's not bad.
No, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm just being told that like people told me horror stories about California.
Yes, that's what I mean. This guy said he's in the Southeast, I believe, right? So it's not that place.
Southeast. I'm going to guess it's a little different.
This guy doesn't sound like he's particularly litigious.
I love the Judy call though. Tell us more about how you see Judy.
Well, this is the classic thing, like
based on cases you've seen in the past.
Okay, so that's easy. Like, usually what happens is a guy will go away for like 2 months, and he's like, "Yeah, I went to go stay with my aunt in Florida or something, and then I came back, and I'm missing a laptop, and I wanted, I had some shoes, and it's like, just he left the shit there, and." He's just like, that's my property. I want it returned to me. And Judy's like, this guy's got all these texts of you not answering. And we know that your phone was on because you answered this one. You didn't answer these ones. Like, you think that this is okay. I know that you had a lease that, that you said all these things were supposed to happen, but you abandoned the property. It's clear. And so Judy would throw that case out immediately. That's just, I know what Judy would do. There's a bunch of different versions of the same situation. I guess the other thing I would say is this guy, like properly litigious? Do you think that he would actually go through, or is he more of a George thing where all that seems way too much for him and he's not actually going to go get a lawyer and take you to court, to get, what's 90% trash and maybe, 10% valuables that he left in this place. So, I guess maybe the thing that would set this guy off is if he's trying to get a security deposit back, and then maybe he might start sniffing around. But I think you're probably well within at least common sense rights to be able to go and start, undoing whatever damage this guy's done, especially if he's never going to come back, which it sounds like he's probably not going to.
Okay, but there's two different things happening here. You're talking about the Judge Judy scenario. And by the way, shout out to your hours invested in Judge Judy for giving us perspective that I can't provide on this. But there's two different legal directions that you're talking about. One would be the tenant being like, hey, where's all my stuff? Oh, I threw it in the dump. So you're saying, get something on record. Let's see
all the text,
string of communication, right? Send some emails, send a letter to the last known address. Although I don't even know that you're going to know that. Text message constantly. Hey, I'm going to throw this stuff away. Like, you need to let me know what's going on. All right, whatever. So in that case, you're covering yourself. But the other way, the other direction of him taking this guy to court for the ductwork. I mean, imagine you have a security deposit, but $10,000 is probably not what the security deposit was on this property. I would, you can go after him as hard as you want, but somebody who's willing to do this is, I mean, you hate to reward the asshole because this guy's so
the reward is kind of that he's gone, though, right? That's the other thing. The reward for this guy is kind of that this is the end of this road, maybe.
Yeah, but if you own, like when I had the tenant piss on my mattress because they took the mattress covers off, and I put in like brand new Tempur-Pedic mattresses, which is just stupid on my part.
That was nice of you.
And I was like, hey, there's piss all over the mattress. And they were like, it wasn't us. I was like, it's 100% you. And, I talked to my realtor about it. He was like,
More like, is it worth it for you? Because it's probably not.
yeah, right. Because he didn't want to deal with it, Like, I love the just, like, philosophy on things. It's like, I'm telling you to not do anything because I really don't want to have to do anything. Can't you keep, unless you went month to month and you didn't, he couldn't have given the security deposit back. But again, there's no way, based on what you're telling us about this guy, about this property, where the whole deal, there's no way the security deposit was $10,000. So it's not going to cover the ductwork. You can go after them all you want, but it'd probably make you feel a little bit better. But don't be upset if it doesn't go your way on that part of it. But I love Kyle's Judge Judy scenario on all of the stuff that was left behind and covering your bases for a house that he has damaged and abandoned. And now you have to make dump runs and pay for removal to get the stuff out of there.
Yeah, so, the thing I would say is if you end up going to small claims, right, you want to make sure you're not taking any liberties like entering the home early and stuff like that. That can be proven. That's the only thing. If you're like, if you're not looking at it as like, oh, this is good, this terrible mistake I made is finally gone and I charge it to the game. If you're like, I'm actually trying to recoup some stuff here, and it turns out that you didn't actually do everything as the exit agreement in your lease, then that could not be, if you're like shining a light on his shit, you might actually shine a light on you entering early and stuff like that. So if you're not planning on going on record officially in a court system, then open that door and start tossing shit out.
There's also probably better people to talk to than us.
Definitely.
All right.
100%.
Next one, 6'2", 225, 20 years old, pickup comp, poor man's Kevin Love. Used to be a bigger body and can get hot from deep if you don't close out. Sorry for the long email. This actually isn't even that long. You should see some of the other ones. Here's my problem today. I got accepted to my dream school when I left high school and proceeded to get my dream job as a manager of a sport team there. He has told me what he's doing. It is very cool, very impressive. We will not share, but it's big time. So he's manager for a very high profile college sports ball team. Now it's becoming a what if, as school was never really my thing, but having my dream job and meeting great people made me stick around. Now the school part is catching up to me, and I'm most likely done with school 2.5 years through college as I'm in a tough spot with my grades. I'm going to finish out this semester just to get the credits, but now looking towards the future, I'm not going to be able to keep this job. Most likely we'll have to move home. And what should my steps be from here? Here are a couple options. Let me know what you guys think. Going to my dad's real estate business at home. Just going home story, getting a decent job and living life from there. I've had to face that demon. And for some of you, it's great. You start with a massive advantage. So, not the same for everybody. Keep going to this school far from home and trying to work back my grades to get this job back if possible. I'd have to retry out for this spot to do that. But knowing everybody here well, I think I'll feel pretty good about it. So he's telling us he likes his chances. So it looks like he's going to, because of his grades, be ineligible to be the team manager. I don't know how any of that works. He's telling us that, but he could potentially get it back if he improves his grades. Going home, number 3, going home and just getting a simple communications degree at my local community college and trying to work my way back into the sports industry I so wish to work in, possibly trying to get a job at a local radio station and being around the industry in some way. I have some connections to that radio station, so it might be on the table if I reach out. Overall, I'm just kind of lost after failing myself in this endeavor and just seeing what the gang's input is on this situation. How would you handle this? Look, this is pretty big time stuff. You seem to light up based on the communications school, community college, this / communication community path.
Yeah, well, this story is sort of an amalgamation of what was going on with me. 2 years in, I'd still not really cracked any books, so to speak. Right. And I turned my shit around from like a 2.0 to like a 3.7 or whatever it was that by the end there. And I really
just the big brains on Brad here.
Yeah, whoa. I know. I just found out about the library. It sounds like maybe this guy's pouring all of his, I wasn't pouring all my stuff into managing a sports team. I was pouring my stuff into other things.
Knife business.
Right.
Speaking of knives, shout out to Benchmade Knives, our friends. They hooked the crew up. Kyle ended up with both his knife and Cerruti. It was a big knife for Kyle.
Huge knife.
Cerruti could not pack his knife because he had to carry on. So we don't need a knife charge on Cerruti here on a plane. But great
light
craftsmanship.
As a feather, Benchmade. Light as a feather.
Fun knives, right?
Really fun. Looking for something to throw them at in my apartment that wouldn't damage anything. Anyway,
sure that's what they wanted to hear. Is that going to be your everyday carry?
You wouldn't even know it's there. It's so much lighter than the other 4 knives that I have. It's really nice.
Okay.
I could wear it on a chain around my neck. That's how light it is.
So back to the tale of two Kyles.
Oh, my point is, it's totally whatever you're doing. You're distracted from school, right? That's fine. And mine was way less admirable than what you're being distracted with, but you can totally do it. I was literally a flip was a switch was flipped. I mean, I was if I got an 80 through high school, I was like, that's pretty good, right, Dad? And he was like, because that's where I was in the rankings. He was like, you know what? I guess that's pretty good for you. And I didn't really start trying for 100% until probably the beginning of my third year in college. All I'm saying is I thought it could never happen, and then I just changed my ways. And I think you just need to find time, go to the library, whatever. Maybe you just need to not have this job for a semester and get it back. I wouldn't. If you went the college route, I think it's way harder to get back into it. My buddy is now 31. He just graduated this last year, and he's like a different type of college grad, and he's really struggling. So you already did the thing. You already said, fine, I'll do this. Even though a bunch of people in America are yelling it's a scam, I still did it. I wouldn't give up on this. I would just try to crack the books and see what, don't sell yourself short, man. Don't just say, oh, fuck it, I'll get a communication job. Maybe I'll be HR somewhere. I don't know. I think you're already here. Just wait until they kick your ass out, or you flunk out or whatever. Really, really try to see if you can crack these books. Unless it's not like you hate college. You're just I hate failing at college, right? That's what he's saying.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because the way I read it sounded like there's a chance it's still salvageable at the current place, but you're just going to lose the student management position, but you could get it back. So here's what I would say, as somebody who also fucked up in college massively his freshman year. Well, that's me. I can stop doing third person. I took the wrong courses, and then later on I had something going on at home, and I didn't do great. And a massive thanks to Patty Corcoran with the University of Vermont, who didn't give up on me, right? But I would tell you this, as somebody that had to fix it and figure it out, because I felt like I can't just leave. I've already owe this money, and I have credits, and now what am I going to do now? I was always thinking in the back of my head, I was like, maybe I'll just become a general contractor or whatever, right? That was kind of always the default when things were pretty down. Whatever, not a bad
That much
gig.
Different than our guy here.
Yeah. But what I would say to the emailer is that you would be shocked how adults respond to somebody that steps up and gets in front of it. Okay. So I don't know if you're telling us you're absolutely failing out after this fall semester and there's nothing you can do about it. Can you go to anybody right now? It's October. Okay. The semester is not over. I don't know in the South how it works, but
trimesters and whatnot.
Some time. No, well, I think they may start early, but that's not the point. If you go to somebody that matters in your department, okay, and says, look, I fucked it up. And I don't know if you're getting kicked out of school, if you're just losing this job that you want. What can I do? Maybe you can't salvage this semester, but what can I do to fix this? I need to fix this, because most people, especially at that age, you just kind of put your head in the sand and you hope it goes away. And guess what? It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. And because so many people have that approach, you're embarrassed socially. There's some elements there that prevent you from just sitting. But if you emailed us, you got this gig, okay? There's probably something about your personality that's outward enough. If you were to walk into the door to an administrator within your school, and then maybe to somebody else, and then talk to the coach, just do an adult fest, okay, for a week while you're on campus, and walk in owning every one of your fuck ups here, you're going to be shocked the way adults respond to you, because they're not going to be used to seeing it happen. Where you're not making excuses, where you go in. I mean, sometimes actually it helps to kind of lay on whatever, deal with some stuff. But for the most part, be like, hey, I've already messed up. I need to figure out a way to fix this, get in front of what the next step is. I'm not giving up on this opportunity. You tell the coach, hey, here's what I did. I met with this person. I met with that person. I want to come back. I want to be a team manager, and I want to make it a priority. And I know I can't be promised anything, and I may have ruined this great opportunity, but I'm going to tell you, like, from this day on, and just like Kyle said, get in the fucking library. Like, whatever you think you can do or not do, it's not working. And I had to figure that one out too. I thought I was a lot smarter when I showed up to Vermont than I was. I was like, this school isn't that hard. And I'll never forget, like, thinking I aced the first test I ever took, and it came back, it was like 72. I went, what the fuck happened here? I'm like, I walked out of that room like shoulders back going, I'm dominating this place. Like, this is easy. And then it was
my
like,
transfer papers in.
Yeah, right. Like, it was one of Dartmouth. They're not that far away. See what they're up to. Probably walk on. So I know what you're going, but if I could have ever, I don't want to do it over again, but if I were to do it over again, or if I were to have a kid dropping him off at college, I would say, like, before you fire up the PlayStation, before you start just whatever it is that you do now and doom scrolling and all the stuff and the fuckery of the dorms that is so
whatever
much
those weird
fun.
cans that you guys are sucking on now, whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah, right. I don't even know what that is. But anyway.
Yeah, it's like nitrous or something. I don't know.
You lost me. But if you just decide to, like, after a class, stay on campus to do work for an hour before the fun times.
Crazy difference, dude.
It would change your life. And then I finally started doing that. I was like, before I get back and somebody's like, you know, because when I heard the beginning of night, I could be walking down the staircase of my house, backpack on, truck keys in hand, ready to go outside. I would see the snow, and then I would hear the Genesis turn on, and I would go, well, I'm not going to make it today. Not going to make it up there today, because it was so
cold.
much fun.
Right.
It was just so much fun. But then, look, the point is, to the advice, if you can show them a version that they rarely see from students going through this, I think you will be rewarded, even if the payoff isn't immediately, if you actually want to stay at this place. But some of your email makes me think that you're kind of over it, and maybe you only liked being part of the team thing. But that team thing is major connections. I'm just basically telling you to do whatever you can to get your degree from this school and continue on the path of getting back together with this team, because that's going to open doors that community college communications degrees are not going to open. Okay?
Word. I mean, essays and tests aren't fun, man, but doing well actually is. Like, outside of, like, oh, maybe I can convince
grades
them.
are
Dude,
cool.
You're about to convince. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I convinced myself. I was like, God damn, look at Mr. 73 pulling off a 96 with some, encouraging red pen on the paper. That's what I'm fucking talking about. And even if that only lasts for 10 minutes of happiness, it's cool. You're not just showing them, you would be showing yourself. And just as a guy who felt like he didn't know where that switch was to flip it, once you fucking feel around and find it, it's like, you'll be surprised at how much easier this thing will seem. It's not going to seem impossible. And how am I going to do another 2 years of this? So anyway.
Yeah, I know. When you're going through the bad times for college and the grade, it's like every test you're taking, and then you get something back, and you like the doom of looking up your grade and then when it pivots to, I can't wait to see how well I did. Yeah. It's a lot like the bench press. All right, that'll do it for the show today. Thanks to Kyle, Cerruti, Wargon. No thanks to them, except for their picks, but they're not getting a full credit on this
and their
show.
Knives.
Yeah, they didn't even get knives out of the deal. They're going to have to pay full price from Benchmade online, because Benchmade tried to make it happen. Kyle's now a 2-knife guy. So look out, world. Thanks for listening. Check out our YouTube page, and always subscribe. Ryen Russillo Podcast for Podcast.